Hey guys, welcome back to Connor's Corner. Today I'm going on a hike. So today's video is going to be about just my experience with how I stayed in my comfort zone for many years and kind of the path that led me down. And I wanted to talk about how staying in your comfort zone really keeps you stuck, doesn't really allow you to grow very much, and it kind of shrinks your world over time. I'll show you around a little bit and I'll get to talking about how I stayed in my comfort zone and why that impacted my life, how it impacted my life, and how changing that has honestly completely changed my life for the better in a lot of ways. So yeah, see you in a bit. So I'm at Middle Cove Beach today. Nice view here. It's where the trail is, where I'm going today on my hike. So today's hiking trail is called Silverhead Mine Path here in Middle Cove, Newfoundland. It's about 15-20 minutes outside of St. John's. It's a beautiful trail. You'll see a few of the beautiful views here in my video today. I highly recommend coming here if you're ever in the area. I feel like it's one of the lesser known trails. It's definitely a really nice trail. I think the total length is just a bit over 4 kilometers, and it's there and back, so you can stop at any point and just turn around, which is what I'm gonna do today. I don't think I'm gonna hike the whole thing. So I've been pretty socially anxious most of my life. And one of the things I avoided a lot was just interacting with people, making new friends, meeting new people and stuff like that. Which would be outside of my comfort zone. So that's kind of how I got to the topic of the comfort zone. Everyone has one. Some people's are much more adventurous than others, and that's okay. We're all different. We shouldn't expect to all be the same. Some people are more outgoing, and others like me are more introverted, which I don't think is necessarily a problem. But when it gets to the extremes of like avoiding people and avoiding going out, I think that's when it kind of starts to become a problem. I've hit a tree in the way. Gotta walk past this now. So like I was just saying, I was pretty socially anxious growing up. And every once in a while I would go outside my comfort zone and try to talk to people and make new friends. You know, I didn't really ever have a bad experience, but I would get all in my head and overthink everything, which is something I'm great at doing. And I would use those thoughts to stay in my comfort zone, to justify staying in my comfort zone. And honestly, it didn't really impact my life all that much for a while. I mean, I just look at when I moved here to Newfoundland 9 years ago. I'd only lived away from home once, and that was only like an hour and a half away. So it wasn't really a big deal. But I picked up and moved to Newfoundland for my partner at the time. And that was really far outside my comfort zone. And I'm really happy I did it. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't change a thing. It's led to many great things, but also some hard things. But that's just life, right? Ups and downs. It wasn't until about when the pandemic hit. At first, I was like, man, this is great. Like, I have to stay inside. Like, this is going to be awesome. Me and my partner staying inside all the time, just enjoying each other's company. And yeah, it does sound awesome. But when it's an extended period of time, you start getting comfortable in your comfort zone, which is exactly what happened to me. Like I was just saying, at the time, it felt awesome. Didn't have to go interact with anybody. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was just avoiding going outside my comfort zone, facing my fears, which I don't recommend. It just keeps you stuck in the same pattern, and eventually got to a point where I couldn't even go outside. It was hard to interact with anybody, like even the cashier at the store. Like, I was just so embarrassed to be so anxious. So over time, your world just gets smaller. There's less people in it. You're not interacting with people outside of your little comfortable friend group or family group. And you're not getting outside of your comfort zone. And you're not having new experiences and showing your brain that you can do these things, which is something very important that I figured out this past year. Just showing yourself that you can do these things. Because when you tell yourself you can't, your brain believes it. Then you have no confidence in yourself, and no confidence leads to you not interacting with people and just being embarrassed and anxious. So you go outside of your comfort zone less. And the best way to combat that is to go outside of your comfort zone and face those fears. But your comfort zone wants you to stay within it and stay stuck, which is what happened to me. It led me down a path that I regret going down. So if you're starting to go down that path right now, I'd recommend against it. It's okay to need help. I needed therapy to kind of get that boost of confidence to be able to do these things. And I'm not perfect. I still struggle with certain things, but I'm putting in the effort, and really at the end of the day, that's all you can ask. So to sum that all up, the more you avoid things, the scarier they become, and the harder it is to get outside your comfort zone. And that's not a place I recommend staying, your comfort zone. There's a quote I hear quite often. It goes, growth begins outside of your comfort zone. And there's a reason why it's so famous, because it's honestly really true. And it sounds cliche, but all my growth this year has been pushing outside my comfort zone. Like right now, I'm walking down a pretty popular hiking path. I've come across a few people already. I've got my camera out talking to myself. And that's pretty far outside my comfort zone. I just want to stop here for a moment and enjoy this really nice view. God, Newfoundland is so beautiful. I really love it here. The views are so amazing. I could listen to those waves crashing all day. It's so nice to come out here and just relax and think about life and let your brain process things. So it wasn't until I started going outside my comfort zone that my life started changing significantly. And I knew I couldn't continue living on the way I was. I was so stuck. I had major depression, and I didn't know it at the time. And the first major change was the loss of my 9-year relationship. I look back at that and I say it like jolted me out of depression. At the time I was so depressed I couldn't even get out of the house and do anything. And honestly, the next day after we split up, it was go time. I started making all these changes. I applied to career counseling because I wasn't working at the time. And I wanted to look for a job, which I had struggled with for a few years. Even just thinking about getting a job at the time was so stressful and made me so anxious that I just would shut down and stay in my comfort zone and avoid making a change. The second big change I made was starting therapy. And I had tried it before, like I've said in my previous videos, and it didn't really work all that well for me. It turns out I just had a bad therapist at the time. But when I quit therapy the first time, it was too stressful to try to find a new therapist. And I just ended up quitting, and that set me down a bad path. But I ended up finding a really good therapist who I'm so grateful for. And he's helped me change my life. And one of the first things he got me to do was start going outside my comfort zone. He told me about how staying in my comfort zone reinforced in my mind that I couldn't do these things, which in turn made me even more anxious, which also made me even more depressed. So he really encouraged me to start going out, starting exercise. I started walking every single day, going out and interacting with people. I started volunteering as well, which was pretty far outside my comfort zone, but it really gives you a sense of accomplishment to be able to go do something that helps the world and the community. And it makes you feel good about yourself, which sounds kind of selfish, but you're helping people at the same time, so I don't think it's a big deal. Exercise plays a pretty big part in my daily routine for, just feeling grounded and mindful, practicing mindfulness. And it's just good for your body, which is also good for your mind. So it's been a big part of how my life has changed this past year for my mental and physical health. And when I was depressed, I was just sitting on the couch all day, which was my comfort zone. And it felt impossible to walk every day. But this past year I've walked almost every day. And I can honestly say it helps a lot. I say all this because my life changed quite a bit this past year in some negative ways that I wish I could go back and change, but I can't. But also in some very positive ways. And it's kind of put everything in perspective for me. The loss of my relationship. Staying in your comfort zone isn't worth it. I don't recommend it. feels great at the time because it's scary to go out and do things that you are uncomfortable doing, but life's too short. And when you get older and you don't care as much about what people think or any of that stuff, you'll look back and regret not doing certain things and not getting these wonderful experiences that you get by going out and doing things outside of your comfort zone. And that'll look different for everyone. And it always seems so scary at first because our minds tend to look forward to like the end goal instead of breaking it down into smaller steps, which is how things actually happen. And that's why I like the motto of taking things one day at a time so much, because when you do take things one day at a time or one step at a time, it's so much more manageable. It doesn't seem as intimidating. And the progress really builds up over those days. I look back at this past year, and each day I didn't do anything huge or life-changing. But these routines that I built and the things I did outside my comfort zone, I've showed myself that I can do these things that I didn't think I could do for the longest time. And I really feel like a completely different person. I never would have thought at any point in my life that I'd be out filming in public with a selfie stick, making YouTube videos, posting them for everyone to see on the internet. And honestly, I'm proud of that. I can understand why things seem so scary and difficult to do. And if you're stuck like I was, I highly recommend therapy. It sounds scary, but it's literally their job to make you feel as comfortable as possible. And honestly, I feel like my therapist is a really good friend of mine, which is great. I can go in there and talk about anything. I felt comfortable right away, pretty much. And I told him what I was struggling with and what I wanted to work on. And we've done that this past year. And he always tells me how good I'm doing. And it feels good to hear that from someone, especially someone that's not family or friends and they don't really gain anything by complimenting you, right? This is another really nice view along this path. It's always nice to look at the coastline and watch the waves crash in and just soak in a nice view. Anyways, I say all this to hopefully encourage you to push outside your comfort zone. Believe it or not, you'll honestly surprise yourself. We allow our minds to really limit ourselves, and when we tell ourselves we can't do something, we fully believe it. Sometimes we take our thoughts as 100% truth, and a lot of the time they aren't. And when you realize that, you can kind of fight back against them and say, you know what, I can do that. Even if I feel like I can't, I'm gonna give it a shot anyway. And if it goes well, awesome. And if it goes bad, it's not the end of the world. You learn something from it. You can always take a lesson from something that goes wrong or different than you expected. So yeah, hopefully I encourage you to push outside your comfort zone today. I highly recommend it. I briefly talked about the ways my life has changed this year because I started going outside my comfort zone. And honestly, I feel like a complete different person. Like for most of my life, I felt like I couldn't talk to strangers, and strangers were scary, and I didn't know how to have a good conversation with someone. And I'm not perfect by any means. I'm still a work in progress, but we're always a work in progress. You can always improve on things, and a bit of progress each day is something to be proud of. So yeah, if you're stuck in your comfort zone at the moment, try to push yourself a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything drastic. Like if you're like me and you don't feel like you can talk to people very well, you don't need to go to a store and strike up a conversation with a stranger and, talk to them for an hour. Just baby steps, just say hi to someone on your walk, small stuff like that, right? And over time, you'll gain more confidence in yourself, and you can keep setting the goal higher and higher. And eventually you'll look back and be so surprised at how much you've changed. I honestly think staying in my comfort zone is kind of a big reason why I was so depressed for a few years. It kind of kept me in that state of mind and didn't allow me to grow at all as a person. And the longer I stayed in my comfort zone, the more depressed I got. It was just like a vicious cycle of anxiety and depression and staying in my comfort zone, kind of all feeding each other. So yeah, I don't recommend going down the path that I went down. It's not fun to be depressed for 4 years. So definitely push outside your comfort zone. If any of this resonates with you, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to chat with you guys. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. I would love to have you here on my channel. And feel free to like as well. Apparently that helps with the algorithm. I don't really know much about the ins and outs of YouTube, but apparently it pushes it out to more people. And I'd like to get my message out to as many people as possible. There's so many people struggling these days with their mental health. And it's just nice to have some people to talk to. I'd really like to build a small community of like-minded people that are trying to improve their life and get better and deal with their problems head on. So thanks again for checking out my video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.